Hi, welcome to ACF's Chef's Table webinar series. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on pierogi. For those unfamiliar with the American Culinary Federation, the ACF, we're the leading organization for culinary professionals offering education, certification, community, networking, events, let's see what else, accreditation, for chefs and food service leaders. If you're not yet a member, today's webinar is a great example of the valuable resources we offer. Today, we'll be joining ACF chef Grant Tipton as he shares an overview of the history of dumplings and pierogi before moving on to a demonstration of Polish potato cheese pierogi. Feel free to ask questions using the Q&A function at any time. Let's get started by sharing where you are tuning in from in the chat. I am JJ Vitale, the Executive Director of the ACF, and I'm excited to be here with you. All right, let's meet today's presenter. Chef Grant Tipton is a self-taught chef who started his career in 1978 in Southern California. He worked in various kitchens in Los Angeles and Orange County through the 80s before going into corporate level management during the 90s and early 2000s, maintaining his connections in restaurants in the culinary industry. In 1999, he moved to Illinois and immediately became involved in the culinary scene there, becoming a member of the IACP and Slow Food Chicago. Through his involvement in Slow Food Chicago, he was fortunate enough to participate in many food events and demonstrations with Chef Rick Bayless of, oh goodness, Topolo Pompo and Frontera Grill. You can correct my pronunciation, please. Who recruited him to join the Chefs Collaborative. He has been conducting in-home cooking classes as well as small upscale catering since 2004 under his own company, T3 Culinary. At this time, I will pass it over to Chef Tipton. Take it away, Chef.
Hi, welcome. I'm Chef Grant Tipton. I now am the Chef and Operations Manager for the Polish Center of Wisconsin, which is located in Franklin, Wisconsin, just on the south side of Milwaukee, just north of the border. We are an event center. We do weddings, funerals, all kinds of business meetings and different types of events throughout the year. We are the organization that runs the Polish Fest down in the Summerfest grounds during the month of June. And we try to do as many cultural events as we can to promote the Polish heritage. We are over our umbrella is the Polish Heritage Alliance, which is the largest alliance and Polish group in the United States. And with Chicago and Milwaukee, we have the largest Polish community outside of Poland. I believe it's outside of Poland. I know it's certainly in the United States. So again, I'm here to do pierogi today. So what we have is what we're going to start with. I'll give you a background on pierogi. Pierogi is essentially a dumpling. And as many of you know, dumplings are an essential in many different cultures. You have the Chinese dumpling, the Japanese dumpling. You have, South America, you have different types of dumplings, larger, smaller. You have the Italian, lost the train of thought. The Italians have their form of dumplings, and most of the dumplings are what I would call a peasant food. It's usually done with leftovers. It's an easy recipe. It's a quick recipe. Other than resting the dough, it really doesn't take that long. So with that said, I'm going to just kind of jump into the recipe. We'll start with the dough because you want to have the dough done first because you want to let it rest while you're making the stuffing ingredients. So what we're going to start with is 2 cups of flour, a half teaspoon of salt, 1 large egg, and 4 tablespoons of butter and a half cup of sour cream. Sour cream gives it the moisture and a little bit of a tang to it. That's a little different than some other dumplings where it's just basically a salt and flour and water mixture. But again, it's a basic recipe. So I have the flour and the salt already mixed here, and I will work in the sour cream first. And I'm going to use my impeccably clean hands. And what you're going to do is you're just going to incorporate the sour cream. You want to, you'll get little beads of flour and sour cream and get that worked in. Then we're going to add 1 egg. The same thing, we want to break that up, get it mixed in. And incorporate it as much as possible. Again, you can see it getting a little bit more granular and creating clumps. And you really want to get it worked in with your fingers. So now I have 4 tablespoons of butter that I'm going to work in as well. And again, this is a fairly basic recipe. Now, this will really make it clump up and come together. Yes, you're going to get your hands dirty. The best part of cooking for me is getting my hands involved. And what you're doing is, one, you're incorporating the wet ingredients and you're hydrating the flour. And that's part of the resting process as well. Once you get it all together and get a rough dough together, then it becomes, you want it to become hydrated. So you want to let it rest, and that'll take the time to put it together. And I'm going to dump this out here. And you can see it comes together fairly quickly. It doesn't need kneading. You're not making bread or anything that's going to, that you're trying to work the gluten or anything like that. You want basically to incorporate it and get the moisture into the dough. So that's pretty much it right there. Okay. Then what you'll do is plastic wrap, throw it in the refrigerator for at least a half hour up to an hour. Again, the hydration is what you're looking for. My hands rubbed off here. Okay. So that's the dough. Pretty simple, huh? The next, so now we're let that set and hydrate. The next step would be, while that's hydrating, you would make the filling, and literally you could use anything. Today I'm making a potato cheese, which is a pretty staple filling in Poland. But what they did was they use leftovers. So if you have pot roast and you wanted to shred it up and make a filling, if you had sauerkraut and mushrooms is another one that's very popular. You know, a vegetable. I've seen where it's just straight beef. Pork is another popular one. Sweet sweet cheeses. So ricotta and cottage cheese. That's considered a sweet cheese. I've seen blueberry. I've seen um, mascarpone. So really anything can go into these. So what we have for the potato filling is potatoes, and kind of similar to the dough, but leftover potatoes mashed. You can make them ahead of time. You know, do your normal thing, boil the potatoes, and make them. But you want to make sure that the potatoes are chilled or at room temperature, because if you put hot ingredients into the dough, it'll basically dissolve the dough. So okay, so we've got potatoes. We have uh, some sour cream, and typically in Poland, they use farmer's cheese. And farmer's cheese is just a basic cheese where they milk the cow, separate out the whey, put in a little bit of rennet, and just let it sit in a cheesecloth, and then they have cheese the next day. So what I'm using is goat cheese. It's a lot more readily available. Farmer's cheese, traditional farmer's cheese from Poland or Polish farmer's cheese, you would need to get at a specialty shop, usually a European shop or the Polish deli or someplace like that. So that's why I'm going to use the goat cheese. So potatoes, we're going to put in a little bit of sour cream, mix that in, and typically you don't really, most chefs want to salt and pepper things like that. This, you don't really do that because you will have um, other ways to do that. So when you actually do the cooking, you can do sauteed onions and bacon bits and that kind of stuff as a topping. So you don't really put a whole lot of salt and pepper, just a little bit to taste. But just remember, when you use salt and pepper, what's the topping that you're going to put on it? Is it something that's going to be a little salty or savory? So just make sure you're compensating for that. So the cheese will go in. And the recipe I'm using, it's 2.5 pounds of potatoes, uh, 1.5 to a cup of sour cream, 8 ounces of farmer's cheese, and then a small diced onion. I'm not doing the onion today. That's for the top. So you'll mix this in and mix it thoroughly because you want to make sure that everybody gets a bite. When you're doing other toppings, say a meat topping or vegetable topping, one consideration is how moist excuse me, not topping, but stuffing is how moist it is. You don't really want something real moist because it'll blow out during the cooking process. So you want to make sure that if you're doing sauerkraut or any other kind of vegetable, that it is not dry, but it's not dripping wet. Okay. So that's that. So now we have our filling. Next step will be to roll out the dough. And this dough I made, obviously I made earlier so that it'd have time to hydrate. You can see that it's pretty well hydrated. And it's going to be just like any other dough. You want to smush it down a little bit of flour, and roll it out. Now, if you're in the local area, our chapter president, Joe Pierogi, and myself, we do classes, Polish classes, and other cooking classes. But the main ones we do are pierogi and Polish sausage. So we teach both of those here at the Polish Center, and we get a pretty good crowd. And everything that we make is traditional. Joe uses the recipes from his family. Okay. Typically, your grandma or your great grandmother would have a mason jar or an old tin can. Obviously, I'm using a cookie cutter, but it's nothing real fancy. You want to cut out a disc, and then back up some. And you want these to be about 1/8 of an inch or thinner. You don't want to be able to see through it, but you want to be able to manipulate it, and you want to be able to fill it. So then you'll take about a teaspoon and a half, and place it right in the center. And then from one side to the other, you're going to pinch it off. And there's many a grandma out there that can do this without blinking, without thinking, without anything. So um, in there, and with our classes, we've had some people that have taken like dumpling courses and stuff like that, and they do fancy fluting and stuff like that. But the main point is you want to get it sealed, and you want to make sure that it's not going to blow out. This is not one of those things where you need to take a fork and use a fork to seal it. It's just by hand. So like the ladies were saying earlier, if you were watching the Olympics, this is the pierogi of the Polish delegation. So there's one. Let's pull this one out a little bit thinner. Okay. Again, you're just going to fold it. We'll get multicultural. We're going to fold it like a taco, pinch it off, and just start working your way around until you have it sealed. I got a little overzealous with the last one and overstuffed it, but that's basically, and you can fold. Make it a little fancy. Um, so you can do, somewhat fluted. One thing I have found about these types of dishes, whether it be dumplings or pierogi or uh, on the Hispanic side, the Latin side. I grew up in Southern California, so it was tamales. Usually, you sit around. You have a large group of family or friends or both, and this is where you could sit around and make dozens of these and talk about each other, talk about the people that aren't in the room, that kind of stuff. So it's a social gathering as well. So it's not just something that where you're making tonight's dinner or a meal. It's a social engagement. Usually, everyone from grandma down to the babies are there. So you can take these, lay them out on a sheet, let them dry out a little bit. There's two methods of cooking them. One is boiling, so just straight up hot boiling water. You don't need to salt it. It's not pasta. Place it in the boiling water. Try not to overcrowd it because it'll drop the temperature and it'll start dissolving if it's in the water too long. Once they start floating, that's about the time that they're ready to take out. The second method is pan frying, and typically you'll go through the boiling method, and then you'll take them out, put them on a paper towel, and then in a pan with butter, you will pan fry them until they're golden brown. Either way works. And then toppings. The typical topping is onions, sautéed onions, and fried, bacon bits, or straight out of the can or out of the pan. So I have a couple of examples here. So one is boiled, and this is topped with just butter today, and then these are the pan fried, and that produces a little bit of brown butter. So I like to pour the butter over the top of it. So that's the two samples of pierogi. And that would be it.
All right. Thank you, Chef. Oh, so now is the time. If you start having questions, let's drop them in the Q&A. Um, okay, first one. What is your view on freezing them after they're made?
Freezing them. So if you're going to freeze them, I would parboil them. So not to the point where they're floating and that they're done. Just what you want to do is you want to create a seal on the flour or on the pierogi. So you're going to just boil them for maybe 90 seconds, and then take them, lay them out on a sheet pan, let them dry, let them air dry. Typically, what I'll do is I'll put them on parchment paper, sheet pan, put them in the cooler, and let them dry out in the cooler for a couple hours, and then take that same sheet pan and put it in the freezer and let it freeze. And then you can take them from there and put them in a bag, and they're good for 3 or 4 months.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you share your dough recipe again?
Dough recipe: 2 cups of flour, half teaspoon of salt, 1 large egg, half cup of sour cream, and 4 tablespoons of butter at room temperature. Then what you're going to do is you're going to mix together the flour and the salt, add the egg, and then combine it all till you get that granular look to it. It'll still be kind of clumpy at that stage. So then you're going to work in the sour cream and the soft butter until the dough comes together and is slightly rough or kind of a sticky ball. It really depends on humidity, altitude, temperature, all of those things on how dry or how wet your dough is going to be. If it's a little bit dry, you can add a little more sour cream. or you can add a little bit of water, and I would do like drops at a time if you're going to add water. And then that brings it together. You're going to knead it slightly just to get it combined, form a ball, wrap it in plastic, and let it rest in the refrigerator for at least a half an hour up to an hour.
Great. What size cutter is being used?
What size cutter? Whatever size you have. This one here, hold on. This is a 3-inch cutter. And that's so the the ones we use are commercially made because we have such volume. So that's about the size of a typical pierogi that you would purchase in a store.
Fantastic. Let's talk about other traditional toppings. Is it traditional to top with dill, parsley, or sour cream?
Yes, all of the above. It really depends on the taste of the person. We dill is yes and no. We don't do that here, but that's not because it's not done. But certainly anything you want to put on top of it. Sour cream is a fairly big. I go through a lot of sour cream here, and literally, it's whatever you want to make of it.
Okay. So actually, someone just popped up. Can we sub sour cream with anything else?
Sub sour cream with anything else. So that's the moisture part of it. I don't have. I'd have to figure out the ratio, but it would be water is what you
Yeah.
would substitute it with.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're lactose intolerant and that kind of stuff, and I can find out and get back with you.
Same vein. Can we use another milk aside from goat milk?
As far as the goat cheese,
Yeah.
any cheese you want, cheddar, um, cheddar. You could use pepper jack. You could use jack cheese. You could use Gouda. Anything you want to have something that's going to melt. Something not something that like a Parmesan, something like that is too hard. So you want to use a softer cheese. I've had it with Gruyere. I've had it with blue cheese. So it's really up to your imagination.
Okay. As far as the fillings, is it always potato puree or is it sometimes diced?
Puree works better. It's
Hmm.
easier to encapsulate into the dough. I've never had it with diced, but I have had chunky fillings like beef and vegetables and that kind of stuff. So I don't know why it wouldn't work. You would just want to make sure that if you're going to use diced potatoes, it would have to, because this is not a very big dumpling, so it would have to be a very small dice, and you'd have to make sure that they're cooked all the way through.
Any suggestions for non-traditional fillings? Sweet potato, question mark.
Certainly, anything like I said, this is um, a what I call must go. So anything that's in the refrigerator must go. You can put it in a dumpling.
All right. What is the cheese to potato recipe? Someone's giving you a run for your money here. I love it. Of
So
cheese to
the
potato ratio.
so the and again, it's really up to you. I tell people whenever I'm doing a cooking class or something like that, I'm going to give you a base recipe to start with, and you can experiment with it to your taste. So this particular recipe is 2.5 pounds of mashed potatoes to 8 ounces of cheese. And again, the cheese, depending on the flavor of it. So if you used 8 ounces of a 5-year aged cheddar, all you're going to taste is cheddar. Now, if that's what you want, that's fine. However, that's what you're going to get. Whereas the goat cheese and the farmer's cheese is more of a mild cheese, and it's a creamy cheese.
Great. So I got it one more, and I think I heard you say an answer, and I don't remember if that was before we started filming or not. Can pierogi filling be sweet like a dessert? I think you mentioned like a ricotta and blueberry, but any other options?
Yes. So anything. I've had blueberry. I've had ricotta. Mascarpone is a sweet cheese. Um, any kind of fruit. There's a lot of like lingonberries and blueberries, blackberries, that kind of stuff. That's from it just grows wild in Poland. So anything that was growing wild, they used.
Okay. I got one. If I make sauerkraut filling, what else can I add to it?
We add mushrooms. Typical a sauerkraut that is very popular here is just a basic sauerkraut with fennel and brown sugar. And it gives it a sweet and sour kind of taste to it. You could add apples, which gives it again that same sweet and sour. I would use Granny Smith or some like a little bit tangier apple. Plus, it holds up when you cook it. So it really, those are kind of the good combinations that I've seen. Experiment
Okay. Have you ever made them with potatoes and ground beef?
and ground beef. Yes. So it's uh I was playing around and basically it was the Irish pie kind of thing. So I have some that my supplier has sent me that is jalapeno, and also uh I have some uh taco meat. So
Cool.
anything you want, fourth for Cinco de Mayo, if you want to do pierogi tacos, there you go.
Great. So I did get another question about the sweet cheese. Is that something that's just naturally sweet, or would you enhance that with any added sugar?
You again, it's all to taste. Mascarpone is a little sweeter. So that would be probably the go-to. But again, I think I would. It really depends on if you wanted like a true dessert type of cheese. I would start with mascarpone, maybe add a little cinnamon and some brown sugar to it to give it a little higher kick, and then maybe sprinkle some brown sugar on it after it's cooked with the butter.
Awesome. Thank you. So I got a question here that's a little bit more about dumplings in general. And that's so, stuffed dough, you said that it can be found in almost every culinary culture around the world. And we want to know why you think that it's so popular. What leads to it being so universal?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is the simplicity of it. Most cultures has some sort of flour or some sort of either a corn flour or a wheat flour. The other is the the ability to feed a lot of people with a little bit, because this is a peasant food. And if you've seen all the cooking travel shows and things like that, the best food is the peasant food. It's usually the stuff where they've gotten the bad cuts. You look at the American South, a lot of the soul food or the southern food is the leftover cuts that the plantation owners didn't want. Same thing plays out in Eastern Europe when they were having famines and that kind of stuff. A lot of it, this was all you had, and if you could grow a potato and you had some flour, you were good to go. So and I think it's proliferated from cultures, as we began to travel, say like the spice routes and exploring new countries and things like that. There's many, 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 many debates on where the dumpling started. Uh, I, but either way, I'm glad that just about everybody has a dumpling because it gives a good variety of flavors that are kind of um, not necessarily well known, but familiar.
Yeah. All right. Well, since I've got you on that topic, what is your favorite aside from the pierogi stuffed dough?
Um, quite honestly, mine is a good old Southern hand pie, apple hand pie, fried.
Nice. Mine's tamale. All right. Okay. Okay, back to our questions for the sweet filling. Would you pan fry or boil?
Um, I would pan fry it because it gives it that crispiness to it. Um, then I would, and you're frying it in butter, and you would top it with, like I said, either brown sugar, cinnamon, powdered sugar, something like that. So it gives a little more of a pie type of
Mhm.
texture. And now understand it's not going to be flaky. This is not a flaky dough. Even though we added butter, it's not designed to puff or rise like a typical pie dough.
Fantastic. For the pan fried pierogi, should they be boiled first?
It's easier to boil them first. If you're going to pan fry them, it's better to have them frozen. I've had better luck with a frozen pierogi, pan fry it, and you want to do it like on a uh, medium low heat, somewhere in there, because you want to bring up the temperature slowly, and then turn it off until it gets brown. Typically, by the time it gets brown, it's done all the way through.
Great. Um, if you are going to float pierogi in a hot soup, at what point would you put them in?
Well, it, I would. So if you're going to do like a service, like in a restaurant, you're going to have the hot soup. I would do the pierogi right at plating. So you would have pre-cooked pierogi and the pre-cooked soup, and just before you plate and send it out, that's when I would add it to it, because it shouldn't break down. It's not like noodle soup where you can put noodles in it and it will, you know, ride in this broth for hours. These will kind of break down a little bit and start losing some of their texture.
Great. Have you ever tried any with fig jam?
Yes,
And
yes. Chef Joe Perjecki, the ACF president here, he's done some fig pierogi.
nice. All right. What are your opinion on deep frying them?
Deep frying works. You they don't, for me, they don't get the brown like a pan fried, but it works and you get a good crispy texture on them. Yes.
All right. Do we have any more questions coming in? That was awesome, guys. That's a lot of questions about pierogi. Anything else? Do you have any tips for someone making pierogi for the first time?
Um, go slow, um, and understand that you might screw it up, but keep trying. It's not, again, it's not a hard uh, process, and experiment, play around with it, keep going back and try different things. The sweet potato I like, regular potato I like. Those are easy ones to start with because it's just a kind of a creamy filling, and you don't have to worry about it blowing out when you go to boil it.
All right. Any crock pot ideas?
Ooh, crock pot ideas. Um, the only issue, and I've never tried crock pot or slow cooking type with pierogi. Again, it would be kind of like the soup. If you're going to do it, I would put it in towards the end. If you have frozen, you could throw them in, say an hour before serving. But Yeah, that would be something I would have to play with because I've never done it. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I think that's it. I think we've answered all the questions.
Wow.
Thank you. Guys, that was awesome. So, with that, I want to thank you, Chef Tipton, for this very informative presentation. We appreciate you taking your time to share about the Cultural Center, which just sounds incredible. If anyone is in the area, I would strongly encourage you to go check it out. And also about pierogi. Everyone, please be on the lookout for a post-webinar email you'll receive in the next day or so, which will include the webinar recording, the survey link to earn your continuing education hour, upcoming webinars, and additional resources. If you don't want to wait to take your CEH survey, you can just stick around at the end, and I think you get automatically directed to that survey form so you can go ahead and complete it. I hope you will join us on March 11th as Matthew Thompson will be presenting a webinar on enhanced nutrition. And then on March 25th, course, which is our task force, the chair, Chef Lakeisha Harris, will be hosting a webinar to share how their task force is shining a light on minority chefs in the kitchen. Visit the media tab on acfchefs.org to register for upcoming events. On behalf of ACF National Convention, thank you again to our presenters for bringing us this opportunity, and thank you for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you.